All right, listeners. So it seems like you're thinking about a future maybe at the front of the lecture hall, getting ready with all the career info and interview prep. Well, get ready to put down those highlighters and pick up a scalpel, metaphorically speaking, of course. Because today, we're diving deep into the world of a medicine lecturer.
And let me tell you, the sources you sent over are incredible. It's like we've gotten a backstage pass to the world of academic medicine. We've got career overviews, we've got hiring guides, we've even got the lowdown on AI interview tools.
But before we get too far into this rabbit hole of research papers and interview questions, let's break down what a medicine lecturer actually does.
You know, going through all this material, it's clearly way more than just lecturing.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's a multifaceted role, that's for sure. We're talking about highly educated professionals, many of whom are doctors themselves, who decided to dedicate themselves to shaping the next generation of medical minds.
So no high school biology here. We're talking about post-secondary students who are already pretty far down the road in their medical journey.
But it's not just teaching, is it?
Absolutely not. Research and publishing, those are cornerstones of this career path as well.
Yeah.
Think of it as a trifecta. You've got teaching, researching, and contributing to medical literature all in one demanding but ultimately really fulfilling package.
Like three sides of the academic triangle, and each one is as important as the other.
Exactly.
Speaking of staying ahead of the curve, one thing that kind of jumped out at me was this need for medicine lecturers to be constantly learning. It's not a get your degree and then coast kind of field.
It's way more dynamic than that.
You are spot on. And I think to understand why that is, we need to consider the rapidly changing landscape of medicine itself. Let's look at the advancements in personalized medicine, for example. What we knew about genetics and targeted therapies, even 5 years ago, has significantly evolved. Medicine lecturers are on the front lines of incorporating those cutting-edge advancements into their teaching. They're constantly evolving alongside the field.
Makes my head spin thinking about all that new information coming out all the time.
I guess you wouldn't want your doctor using outdated textbooks. So it makes sense that medicine lecturers need to be at the forefront of knowledge.
Speaking of challenges, though, these sources did not shy away from the demands of this career path.
Long hours, potential for burnout. It's not all lecture halls and intellectual debates, is it?
It's definitely not a 9-to-5 job. And you're right, the potential for burnout is real. Remember, these lecturers aren't just teaching facts and figures. They're often deeply personally invested in their students' success because they're guiding them through what is arguably one of the most demanding and emotionally charged fields out there.
It's a huge responsibility. You're shaping the future of healthcare. You're not just handing out grades, you're shaping the people who will be saving lives one day.
Exactly. And that emotional investment, while incredibly rewarding, can definitely take a toll if you're not careful.
So it's important to acknowledge that emotional weight. It's not just knowing the science. It's about connecting with and supporting the people who will be applying it.
Now, on to something I found surprising, this whole career advancement aspect within academia.
The sources mention that it can be pretty limited, which seems counterintuitive in such a high-demand field. Why is that?
That is a great question, and it trips a lot of people up. It's not about a lack of demand for experienced professionals. It actually comes down to the very structure of academia itself. So the typical path involves climbing the ranks from lecturer to senior lecturer, and then eventually to professor. But here's the catch. Those higher rungs, they often come with a shift in responsibilities.
What do you mean by a shift? More responsibility, that usually sounds like a good thing, right?
Yeah.
More influence, maybe a fancier title.
True. But for many medicine lecturers, the real joy comes from being in the trenches. You know, teaching students, leading labs, doing that hands-on research. Moving up the ladder often means taking on more administrative duties, managing budgets, overseeing departments, things that can pull you away from the very heart of why you entered academia in the first place.
It's like trading your lab coat in for a suit and tie.
Yeah.
You might have a corner office, but are you really doing what you love anymore?
That's a tough trade-off to make.
It is, and it's definitely something that anyone considering a career as a medicine lecturer really needs to be aware of. Because it's not just about reaching the top of the ladder, but rather figuring out which rung brings you the most fulfillment.
It's about finding that sweet spot where your passions and your career goals, they align. So you're not just successful, but you're genuinely happy with what you're doing day in and day out.
I love that.
But how do you even begin to navigate this world of academic medicine? Let's be honest, The path to becoming a medicine lecturer sounds about as easy as performing brain surgery blindfolded.
Okay, maybe not that intense, but you're not wrong. It takes some serious dedication and a whole lot of hard work.
Yeah.
But let's break it down.
Okay, now you've got the inside scoop, so walk us through it. What are we talking here? Years of intense study, grueling exams, maybe even an obstacle course or two? I'm kidding, maybe.
Well, you might be surprised how accurate that sounds. The academic pathway, as detailed in these sources you provided, it's nothing short of rigorous. We're talking about not just a medical degree, but often advanced degrees in related fields as well.
Okay, so it's not just about being a medical whiz. You need a whole arsenal of knowledge. What kind of related fields are we talking about here?
We're talking an in-depth knowledge of biology, a solid grasp of chemistry, and even a firm understanding of medical ethics. It's about building a well-rounded foundation so you can, in turn, nurture well-rounded medical professionals.
So it's like you need to be a master chef who understands not just the recipe, but like the science behind each ingredient and even the ethical implications of serving it.
Now you're getting it.
Yeah.
It's about seeing the bigger picture of medicine and understanding all the nuances that contribute to it.
And I'm guessing this whole well-roundedness doesn't stop at just degrees, right? I bet there are certifications galore involved too.
Oh, absolutely. You have your medical license, of course, that's a given. But then you delve into the world of specialisms.
So are we talking cardiology, pediatrics, oncology, that kind of thing?
Exactly. You need to choose a specialty and become an expert in that particular area. But it doesn't even stop there. There are also certifications like basic life support, BLS, things that are absolutely crucial.
Okay, starting to understand why these sources emphasize this rigorous training. I mean, we are talking about shaping the future of healthcare. The stakes are incredibly high.
They are indeed. These are the individuals who will be making life-altering decisions. They need the best possible foundation, and medicine lecturers play a vital role in providing that.
It's not just about passing a torch. It's about ensuring the flame burns even brighter for generations to come.
Well said. It's a huge responsibility, but it's also an incredibly rewarding one.
Speaking of responsibility, let's say you've conquered the academic Mount Everest. You've got the degrees, you've got the certifications, maybe even an honorary stethoscope or two.
What does that journey actually look like once you're in the thick of it, navigating the world of academia?
Think of it like climbing a career ladder, with each rung presenting its own unique challenges and rewards.
A career ladder in the hallowed halls of academia. This I got to hear more about. Let's take a closer look at what each step of this journey entails, shall we?
So picture this. You've just landed your first official role as a medicine lecturer. You're bright-eyed, you're armed with all that knowledge.
Ready to inspire the next generation of medical minds. But don't expect to be leading grand rounds just yet.
So no, like handing out the white coats on day one.
What's that entry-level stage actually look like?
Think of it like a medical residency, but for the academic world. You'll be assisting senior lecturers. You might get your feet wet leading small group tutorials.
Maybe helping out in the labs.
And let's not forget about all the grading. Stacks and stacks of exams to grade.
Ah, yes, the glamorous side of academia.
I'm getting flashbacks to, like, late nights with endless cups of coffee just hearing about it.
But it sounds like an incredible opportunity to learn, right?
Absorbing that knowledge and experience from more seasoned professionals.
Absolutely. It's all about finding your sea legs, building a solid foundation, and don't underestimate the importance of those early teaching experiences because you're learning to connect with students, how to adapt your teaching style.
How to manage a classroom, invaluable skills that you'll carry with you throughout your career.
It's like a real-life teaching hospital. But instead of patients, you're working with, aspiring doctors.
Exactly.
Now, one thing that struck me as interesting was this emphasis on publishing research, even at the entry level. I mean, you'd think they'd want you to, master the basics before they threw you into the publishing ring, right?
That's a great observation, and it speaks to a really fundamental aspect of being a medicine lecturer. Remember those three sides of the academic triangle we talked about earlier: teaching, research, and publication?
They're all intertwined. Even early career lecturers are expected to be contributing to that ever-evolving body of medical knowledge.
So it's not just about imparting existing wisdom, it's about pushing the boundaries of what we know, contributing to the future of medicine.
Yeah.
It's like you're not just reading from the textbook, you're writing the next chapter.
That's pretty incredible when you think about it.
It is. And that drive to explore, that drive to research, to publish, That's really something that sets this career path apart. It's about constantly seeking new knowledge, challenging the existing assumptions, pushing the boundaries of what's possible in healthcare.
So you're never really done learning, are you? There's always something new to discover, some mystery to unravel in the vast world of medicine.
Exactly. And that thirst for knowledge, that drive to constantly improve, those are qualities that will serve you very well as you start to navigate these different stages of your career.
It's like climbing a mountain, you know. You think you've reached the summit, but then you realize there's a whole other range just beyond the horizon.
What a perfect analogy. And speaking of reaching new heights, as you gain experience and start to make a name for yourself, you'll begin to climb that career ladder that we were talking about earlier.
The rungs might get a bit further apart.
But the view from the top.
Okay, now you've got me intrigued. What does that view from the top look like for, like, a seasoned medicine lecturer?
Well, as you move from lecturer to senior lecturer, you're going to find yourself with more autonomy, more influence. You'll be leading larger lectures, maybe even designing entire modules or even courses.
And mentoring junior faculty as well.
So more responsibility, but also more freedom to shape the curriculum, to like bring your own unique expertise to the table.
Precisely. You become less of a guide at that point and more of an architect, designing the learning experience for future generations of medical professionals.
That sounds incredibly rewarding.
And I bet the research aspect of it evolves too, right? You're not just contributing to papers, you're leading your own research teams.
Tackling some of the biggest questions in your field.
Exactly. You'll be applying for grants, presenting your findings at international conferences, publishing in prestigious medical journals.
Your work might even go on to influence clinical practice, changing the way doctors actually treat their patients.
Now we're talking about real impact. It's not just about teaching anymore. It's about shaping the future of healthcare on a global scale. But with great power comes, well, you know the saying.
I imagine the pressure can be pretty intense at that level.
Absolutely. The stakes are higher. The workload can be demanding. The scrutiny is more intense. You need to be resilient, adaptable, and above all, passionate about what you do.
Because passion is what fuels the fire, right?
Right. It's what keeps you going when the research hits a wall or the grant applications pile up. But I have to say, for those who thrive on challenges, for those who thrive on pushing boundaries and making a difference,
A career as a medicine lecturer sounds incredibly rewarding.
I couldn't agree more. It's a demanding path, no doubt, but the opportunity to shape the minds of future doctors, to contribute to groundbreaking research, to make a tangible impact on healthcare, it's a rare and fulfilling combination.
It's about leaving your mark on the world, one lecture, one research paper, one inspired student at a time.
Beautifully said. It's about igniting a passion for medicine that will hopefully burn bright for generations to come.
But before we get ahead of ourselves and start handing out the honorary diplomas,
Let's talk about the skills you need to really thrive in this field. Because it takes more than just a brilliant mind and a passion for medicine to really succeed as a medicine lecturer.
that's where it gets really interesting, because we're not just talking about scientific knowledge and research skills here.
We're talking about a whole other set of abilities that are often overlooked, but absolutely crucial for success.
Okay, you've got me on the edge of my seat.
Let's dive into these essential yet often hidden skills needed to really excel as a medicine lecturer.
Okay, listener, buckle up, because we're going beyond textbooks and lab coats for this one.
It turns out, to really nail this whole medicine lecturer thing, you need a secret weapon.
People skills.
Oh, absolutely. And not just the can you pass the scalpel kind of thing.
We're talking a whole other level of social savvy.
Makes you think back to some of your own professors.
Yeah.
Like the ones I really connected with, the ones who really inspired me, they weren't always the ones with like the most impressive publication records or anything. It was their ability to, make me feel seen, to challenge me, but also support me.
Well, that made all the difference.
That resonates with my experience as well.
Yeah.
Think about it. You're not just lecturing to a bunch of empty chairs.
You're engaging with a room full of, future doctors, each with their own unique personalities, their own learning styles.
Their own anxieties, let's be honest.
Then let's be real, medical school is intense.
Oh, yeah.
I can only imagine the pressure those students are under. So to have a lecturer who is supportive and engaging,
Can make a world of difference.
huge. And that's where these essential people skills really come into play.
We're talking about things like social perceptiveness.
The ability to read the room, pick up on those nonverbal cues.
Sense when a student is struggling, even if they're not verbally asking for help.
It's almost like being a therapist as well as a teacher. Being able to create that safe and inclusive environment where students feel comfortable asking questions, admitting when they don't understand something, or
Yes,
even just like being themselves.
that's exactly it. It's about fostering a sense of community, a sense of belonging, which can be so important in a field as demanding as medicine.
Now, there's one skill listed in these materials that threw me for a loop a little bit: customer service.
Okay.
And I get that students are important, but
Is
customers.
that really the right way to think about it?
It might seem a little odd at first glance, but when you really break it down, it makes a lot of sense. Think about the core principles of what makes good customer service: clear communication, managing expectations, resolving conflicts fairly.
Going the extra mile to ensure satisfaction.
Yeah.
These are all incredibly relevant in an academic setting as well.
So it's less about like ringing up a sale
Right.
and more about just building those strong relationships with your students, being accessible, being responsive to their needs,
Okay.
and maybe even like throwing in some extra credit for good measure. I'm kidding, maybe.
And remember, those customer service skills, they come into play outside the classroom as well.
You're interacting with your colleagues, with administrators, maybe even potential donors or industry partners.
So it's about being a good communicator.
Yes.
A skilled negotiator, maybe even like a bit of a diplomat when the situation calls for it.
It's like being a Swiss Army knife of soft skills, ready to adapt to any situation.
Well said. And those skills, those human touch points, those are the things that transform a good lecture into a truly great one. Because it's what makes that learning experience memorable, impactful. It's what inspires those students to reach their full potential.
It's about fostering a love of learning that extends far beyond the classroom.
Shaping not just competent doctors, but compassionate healers.
Beautifully put. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
It's about making that positive impact on the world.
One student, one discovery, one interaction at a time.
And who knows, maybe one of those inspired students will be the one to finally discover the cure for the common cold.
Then we'll all finally be free from those pesky tissues.
Now, wouldn't that be something?
Right.
I would gladly volunteer for that research study.
Me too. But until then, listener, we hope this deep dive has given you a clearer picture of what it takes to not just survive, but thrive as a medicine lecturer.
It's a challenging path, definitely, but it's incredibly rewarding, and it requires, like we've been talking about, this really unique blend of intellect, empathy, and a genuine passion for shaping the future of healthcare. So go forth and inspire. We're excited to see what you accomplish.